Welcome back, everybody, to a brand new episode of The Homer. Bryan Anthony Davis is the Homer, and I am the hater. See, I feel so positive and so refreshed today. I almost took on the mantle of the Homer, but welcome to another episode of The Homer and the Hater. To my right, we have Bryan Anthony Davis. Bad, what's happening?
You know what? I've been accused of being a homer all of my life, so it just seems natural. So I guess I'm Homer 2.0, and I'm fine with that as long as I'm not Homer Simpson. Then I'd give you a big dope because I don't want to look that I don't want to be that bald and that big.
Well, I'm always de facto the Homer, given the fact that I am from Manchester. I am from the North Side. I grew up probably about 5 minutes from Heinz Field, or back in the day, Three River Stadium. So I technically am the Homer, but I have a side. I have my depth of flavor reveals my haterisms. So my hater comes out, my North Side, Manchester, pessimistic haterism comes out. And before we do the proper introductions, Donald Nolan is already chiming in, Lance sifting through his favorite Lamar Jackson stats. That's what's holding up the show. See, now I've been called a Raven fan. I am definitely not a Raven fan, but I want to thank everybody on the live chat, everybody for joining us, everybody from chiming into the show. Want to give a big shout, of course, to my co-host Bad. Also want to give a big shout out to the oracle of the website and the editor, Dave Schofield. Big shout out also to Big Bro Sco, Tony Defio, to all the fantastic contributors on the website. Make sure you guys are checking out the website, behindthesteelcurtain.com, because that is the foundation of the podcasts. A lot of the topics we talk about on the podcast come from stories from behindthesteelcurtain.com. So make sure you guys are checking out the website. And if you just check out the website, we want to urge you to check out the podcast, because the website should be an extension to the podcast and vice versa. We want to make sure we get some of you guys that are just looking at the website. We want to corral some of you guys and bring you over to the podcast side. What's going on with you, Bad, today? How you feeling on this Sunday?
I'm feeling absolutely fantastic, and thanks for all the mentions to the website. If you don't mind me adding one more, Michael Beck, who has joined us on the Steelers preview and will be joining us on a few of the podcast going forward every single week. He's doing a great job from up in British Columbia. So we're BTSC Podcast International now. How about that?
He's a Mountie, eh?
Yeah,
you like that. He's a Mountie. You like that A? You like how I threw in that A in there. But before we get into the topic of the program, which is what does a successful year look like for Big Ben statistically, I want to jump into, because it's already hot and popping in the live chat, because I got people fired up on my Yeah, I Said It show on Friday. Make sure you check it out. And on that show, I said, point blank, Ben Roethlisberger is no longer the best quarterback in the AFC North. So I want to pose that question to you, Bad. I want you to be bad. I don't want you, I want you to feel frisky and bad when you give your opinion on this question. And I pose this question to you before we jump into the main topic of the program is, who is the best quarterback in the AFC North right now as of, what's today, June 7th? Yeah, as of June 7th, 2020, who is the best quarterback in the AFC North?
That is such a tough one for me, because I have so many. I could go right now with so many pros for Ben Roethlisberger and so many pros for Lamar Jackson. And you will never accuse me of being a Raven lover, but I tell you what, I still think the Ravens right now are the favorites to win the division. The only thing about Lamar Jackson is, he is so much more versatile. And when you're more versatile than what Ben Roethlisberger is right now, you're probably going to be the front runner to be the best quarterback there. Now, Biggie Bronco, who is a Bronco fan, and he does Bronco podcast as well. He comes in on our show, and he's very respectful of Steeler Nation. We do the same for him. He's saying Baker Mayfield. Now, you look at Baker Mayfield, with Baker Mayfield might be maybe one of the pure passers of the three, but success. I mean, he's had no success, and he's floundered with a lot of pieces to the puzzle there. Ben Roethlisberger has scoreboard. He has history. So right now, you can have an argument that it's Ben Roethlisberger, but he doesn't have a league MVP, and he isn't as versatile. So you can make an argument for Lamar Jackson. If I'm going to say right now, I'm probably going to put my homer hat and still say Ben Roethlisberger, but there's major footsteps.
So, and not to belabor the point, so you're still saying that Ben Roethlisberger, and I don't know if you see the comment from Alfred Fujisaki, if you could pull that up, Bad. So you're saying with Ben Roethlisberger coming off of an injury is still better than the reigning MVP in Lamar Jackson? That's a huge statement.
Yeah, you know what? And see, the thing about that too is the fact that if we're talking the best athlete, yes, Ben Roethlisberger is not. It's Lamar Jackson. But if we're talking about still with history and career, Ben Roethlisberger so far has had the better career. Now going forward, but I'm not answering the question correctly though, so I'm not being fair. But and I'm being wishy-washy. But going forward, if he goes farther in the playoffs, and he goes farther in the playoffs and he wins a ring, then he's going to surpass. But it's really hard to take 2019 Lamar Jackson and compare it to 6 quarters of 2019 Ben Roethlisberger.
That's fair. I mean, that's fair. I mean, with Ben, I think you have to make it anecdotal. I mean, right now, let me ask you this way. How many quarterbacks would you take currently in the National Football League to start over Ben Roethlisberger? What quarterbacks would you take?
Oh, wow. You told me you're going to put me on the spot. I love it. Well, of course we're taking Patty Mahomes right away because, and you and I were talking before the show started. Wow, he is not only he is the best in the NFL right now.
Yeah, he's the new prototype of what a quarterback is.
Yes, and not only that, if you ask me who a better quarterback is, I'm going to say bar none, Pat Mahomes is not only the best in the league, he is better than Ben Roethlisberger. At that point, Russell Wilson is another guy that I'm definitely taking ahead of him. Am I taking a Tannehill? No. Am I taking Kyler Murray? Not yet. Am I going to go ahead and take Tom Brady? Yeah, I have to. I definitely have to at this point.
What about Aaron Rodgers?
Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to have to take Aaron Rodgers at this point because, when you look at all the factors in here, what makes it a really tough to go ahead and put guys up against each other. They're all at different points in their career.
Yes.
So, I mean, but that's what's so great about our podcasts, our articles, and everything. Being a fan gives you an opportunity to argue respectively and respectfully as well about what's going on. And everybody, I liken our podcast, Lance, to a sports bar. You're sitting down,
right?
You're sharing a beverage, and you're enjoying life together, and you have different opinions. Because my fandom is, hey, I'll take a Ravens fan and a Bengals fan and a Patriots fan and sit them all down next to me, and I'm going to respect them as people and have a lot of fun with them. But guess what? At the end of the day, I'm going to argue my team the best way possible without calling them idiots.
well, Bad Schleister, I'm going to respectfully disagree because I'm definitely not going to respect a Bungles fan. I mean, they just don't get any respect at all.
They are the most ill-informed fans, I will say that. But
fans.
I'll inform, and I love I love the Eska loser. When it's the late in the third quarter and they're filing out during a Steeler game there in at Paul Brown Stadium. I love to rip on Bengals fans. But you got to understand, I'm also smack dab in the middle of Ravens country, and I'm still doing the best I can as far as being the cool Steeler fan among them, and that's what I do.
When it comes to clown fans and Bungles fans, they don't get any respect, but I give a lot of respect to Ravens fans, regardless of what we say about Wayne Harbaugh. They win football games, and they are a very well structured organization. They draft well, they coach well, they play well. They're a really good football team, and they compete every year, and they are definitely rivals of the Steelers. But the Escasilla later Bungles and the Cleveland Clowns, those guys are terrible. But let me ask you, before we get into the main topic of the show, the last thing. So you gave Patrick Mahomes, you said Russell Wilson, you said Tom Brady. Though that was your short list.
Rodgers,
or your short list of guys that you would start over Ben Roethlisberger. So I posed the question to my brother, what quarterbacks right now would you take over Lamar Jackson? And I asked that question kind of trying to see if you would put Ben Roethlisberger over Lamar Jackson. Would that be someone that you would take over Lamar Jackson currently on June 7th, 2020? You see, I'm trying to change your opinion.
Yeah.
I'm trying to not subtly pull you over into that hater world so it could be the hater and the hater show.
You know what? I got Sean Langford called me out, and I love this. And I'm going to bring this up on the board here. Bad, stop beating around the bush and just admit it. You'll take Lamar over Ben. I'm sitting in Homewood right now, period. Look, I think here's the thing. I think Ben is a better passer than Lamar Jackson. As far as his completions last year, Mark Andrews in the short stuff bailed him out. Now, he had some long ball. I mean, not saying that he can't throw a long ball because he can, but I still think Ben is the better passer. Statistically, I mean, the last 2 years, you're seeing so much more electricity statistically from Lamar Jackson. I am still taking Ben Roethlisberger. Now, I'd like you to ask me this question on December 30th of this year, right after the last game of the regular season. I might be saying something different. And one thing that you know about me, Lance, and everybody at BTSC and BTSC Nation knows about me is that I am accountable. I will tell you every time I'm wrong, and I'll go back and say, okay, I was wrong about that. But I'm still taking taking Ben Roethlisberger.
You're taking Benjamin.
I want to go Benjamin Todd.
You're taking BTR Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger, the express station. It comes at 3:30 and takes you to Super Bowl. So let's pivot into the main topic of the show. What does a successful year look like for Ben Roethlisberger statistically? Now, when we were talking about the show and coming up with the topic for the show, I posed the scenario to you for you to answer in a variety of different ways. You could pick a comp year. You could take particular statistics. However you want to define what it looks like bad. What do you think a successful year statistically looks like for Ben Roethlisberger? And that can include wins and losses, whatever. What do the stats look like for you, and what stats are most important for you as you define what is a successful statistical season for Benjamin Todd?
So here's the thing, and I'm going to take some guff for this, and I know I am, because I don't have a problem this year with Ben Roethlisberger being a game manager. He does not have to be the dreaded game manager, but I have no problem with him spreading it around, seeing who's open, but I want the wins. And if I'm going to look at a few seasons here, but if I look at his 2005 season, it was his second year in the league. Bottom line, they won a Super Bowl. He was not good at all in that Super Bowl. I know he was 9 for 23 in that Super Bowl, but He still got them to where they needed to be for him to plunge in the end zone, for them to win that game. He did enough to win that game as well. A lot will say that they won that game in spite of him, but no, I mean, they still needed him there as well. But he was 9-3 that season. And as far as his, he only threw for 2,385 yards. Now, remember, he was out 4 games that season. But as far as touchdowns, 17, he had 9 interceptions. So really, I need him to double up, basically, and that's not quite doubling up. But what I really need him to do for this to be a successful Pittsburgh Steelers season is to throw less interceptions. He doesn't have to throw for 5,000 yards. Now, I really want more than 2,385, so I'm going to be looking at more at what I thought was one of his more fantastic seasons, and I'm going to go ahead and look at 2014. And 2014, if you look at that, he averaged 309.5 yards a game. And also in that season, I mean, he was hurt for a little bit of that season, but also he threw for 4,800 yards. So that kind of goes against what I was saying. But in an 11-5 season and not throwing a lot of picks, that's kind of what's going to work for this Steeler team to be successful this year and go to the playoffs. Lance?
Let's point out, I want to take your 2005 and 2014, because when I did my show on Friday, I said it, Ben Roethlisberger is no longer the best quarterback in the AFC North. Make sure you check out that program. I know you guys know I'm the hater, so go check it out. It'll just support my haterdom, as you guys would like to say.
I love how you own it, too.
Me and Dave surmised that 2014 was his best season. That overall, statistically, 2014 was his best season. Speak to this, Bad. You pointed out 2005 and 2014. In 2005, his yards per attempt, meaning yards gained per pass attempt, was the highest in his career at 8.9. His adjusted yards gained per pass attempt at 8.7 was the highest in his career, and his yards per pass completion of 14.2 were the highest in his career. Those are outstanding numbers. His TD percentage, which was percentage of touchdowns thrown when attempting a pass, was also the highest of his career, 6.3. So 2005 was definitely the definition of a year where he got a ton out of less. Is that what you mean by saying he's by game managing? Because game managing is a bad word. It's like saying a person has a tail.
Exactly. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at. You don't basically, if I'm going to surmise what I'm saying and wrap it all up, doesn't have to do everything. He just has to do almost everything right. And that's it. You don't have to be a 5,000 yard passer to win it all. You just don't. And we've seen that over the years when it comes down to getting into the big game and winning the whole thing. You don't have to be the best quarterback in the league. You've got to be the smartest quarterback in the league. You've got to be an efficient quarterback and one of the more efficient quarterbacks in the league. So the reason I picked 2005, I did not, and I'm going to be honest with you, Lance, those numbers that you brought up being career highs was not even in my equation. And when you said that, I'm starting to smile. I'm like, wow, I didn't even know that when I was picking that. I was picking the fact that 1, they won a ring, and 2, he just did not have to do it all, just had to do it right.
You know, when me and Jeff were doing the show, we coined a pretty funny hashtag about Ben Roethlisberger. Hashtag, I didn't get my arm fixed to hand the ball off. Right. So how do you think, because I think 2005 is an interesting pick. I think it speaks to, with this defense, the mindset that he needs to play with, where he needs to be like his idol 7 and support, and not necessarily be the guy that's wholly responsible for every win every week. How do you think he adjusts to that? And statistically, if you could throw out, and let's look at completion percentage, let's look at touchdown passes, yards. Pick another stat in your mind that you would want to say. Give me some numbers around that. What does that look like? Let's take out wins and losses, because we all know, I could care if you throw for 25 yards. If you go 16-0, you had a fantastic season, in my opinion. But what does it look like in terms of completion percentage, maybe yards, passing, touchdown passes, interceptions? Kind of what does that look like within the framework of being this game manager and really being oil that supports the machine instead of being the machine that needs the oil?
I'm going to say number of interceptions, because originally I was going to say interception percentage. But if you look at one of his lower interception percent of years was 2018. And we talk about how glaring those 16 interceptions were that year. And those 16 interceptions killed him at the wrong time.
Right.
But you know what? They still ended up with a 9-6-1 season, and that's not going to be good enough this year. But when you look at it, throwing those interceptions is a problem. If he could get it down to, but if you look at it also, he had 34 touchdown passes that year and 16 interceptions. So that's a differential of 18 on the plus side, but it's still not good enough because those interceptions killed that won a game. And we talked about the turnover streak that we kept on talking about, that I don't know what did it end up being, 23 games, Lance. But
he was so many games. Wow, it's so many games. I don't even want to think about it. It's more than 2 seasons. It's like a season and a half around there.
So if he cuts down on interceptions this year, if he cuts down on them quite a bit and throws less touchdown passes, they could still have a great season. Because I love your hashtag. I didn't have my elbow fixed to hand the ball off. But guess what? If he dumps the ball off on a screen, and if he had a Willie Parker this year, or somebody that could help him out in the backfield and help him out, move the chains that way, and he's not and he doesn't have to go crazy, but he has to just be effective, that is going to give them more wins than going for 5,000. And because with the more yards you throw, the more attempts you have, the more interceptions that are going to come. Because when you're a gunslinger, and you know what, Brett Favre, we talked about Brett Favre, we've talked about other guys that are the ultimate gunslingers. Ben Roethlisberger is a gunslinger right now. Would you agree that you could give him the gunslinger title?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he said it in multiple interviews that he's the gunslinger. But before we continue and we get back to the program, I want to urge you guys to hit the like button. If you're listening to the program, hit the like button. Also, we have the super chat feature if you want to get your question to the top of the queue, but make sure you support the program and hit us with a like. But to your point, Bat, absolutely, he's the gunslinger. He says he's the gunslinger. And again, hashtag, I didn't get my arm fixed. I didn't get my elbow fixed to hand the ball off. Snowman in the live chat says 40 touchdown passes to 10 interceptions. What does it give me a hard number on touchdown passes to interceptions? What's that ratio? What's that look like if you were to say that Ben came back and statistically had a successful season? Is it 3-1? Is it 2.5-1? Is it 4-1? Is it ridiculous? Is it a ridiculous Patrick Mahomes year when he had 50 touchdown passes to about 12 interceptions, where it's 4.5-1? What does it look like? Give me the number of touchdown passes and interceptions in 2020.
I'll say 3.5-1. And I like how we're both Snowman and Joel are saying 40 and 10. I think he could do it with 35 and 10. So anywhere between 35 and 40 touchdowns. But if you could keep that number at 10 or under as far as interceptions, like we said, when you're a gunslinger, they're going to come. You are going to throw interceptions. But if you can keep it about 3.5 or higher, then you're going to have a good year. But as far as yardage, he doesn't have to have over 40,000. I mean, over 4,000.
So
it would be nice.
if you get a chance, look at Dave Schofield's comment. Pop up the Oracle's comment. I want to see if you agree with these numbers because he's saying 31 TDs, 12 interceptions is his prediction for 2020. I think the touchdowns, that's probably about right for Ben Roethlisberger. I think Ben Roethlisberger's touchdown passes, his high is 34. That's about right. I mean, his high in interceptions, wow, is 23. I don't know. That seems about right. It would be interesting to see if he was at 31 and 12, how many yards he would have passed for. But give me your thoughts on those numbers that the Oracle threw out. Would you agree with those numbers? Because I know you said 35 and 10. 31 and 12, is that too far off, or is that right in the ballpark as well?
That's still going to get it done because you're going to have a margin of error. And, Ben's not coming back perfect. And that's the thing. He doesn't have to come back perfect. He just has to come back. And am I overusing efficient? But he just needs to come back and be right. But what the Steeler management has done to help him, they have given him so many opportunities to be right. Because if you have a healthy Eric Ebron and a Vance McDonald, and I don't care what anybody says about Vance McDonald, he catches balls from Ben Roethlisberger. Eric Ebron will catch balls from Ben Roethlisberger. So if you have those guys, they don't have to be 20 yards down the field. They need to be 6 or 7 yards down the field and rumble for a few more. That's what the tight end does. They're going to bail him out quite a bit. Then you're going to have the opportunity for Juju, James Washington, Chase Claypool, DJ 18 to go ahead and run around like crazy. And to go back with what drives you crazy, and I love you, man, Ryan Switzer could help him out too. If he is on that team. If it's a third and 2 and Switzer gets 3 and gets blasted, that's fine. They move the chains. So if Ben uses everything in his utility belt, he could be Batman and not have to be Superman.
It will definitely not be Ryan Switzer powder pellets. He will not use those things in his utility belt.
I am telling you, my dream is to have a guy like Switzer catch a touchdown pass in the playoffs or do something huge in the playoffs just for everybody to say, Bad, you actually thought about this and were right that he doesn't even have to have great statistics. If he could be Mr. Right Now and be the guy that Ben could rely on to get a key first down, then he's helping your team. That 53rd man on the roster can help your team.
I hope I eat that crow because if I eat that crow, that means the Steelers will have been very successful this year and possibly will be celebrating a 7th championship. But I think Alfred Fujisaki in the live chat brought up a very good point. Let's kind of flip it, Bad, in terms of stats and what a successful year looks like. How many sacks? I think the amount, and Alfred says, I think the amount of sacks and QB hits he takes are very important. How many sacks did they give up this year?
So this is really interesting. Ben was sacked 24 times in 2018. And that was actually a high number in a 4-year span, because if we go back to 15, he was sacked 20, 17, 21, and 24. Then you look at 2014, 33, then 42 the year before, 30, 40, 32, 50, 46, 47, and 46. So he was getting cracked. He is getting cracked less and over the last few years. Now, if you talk about sacks and we talk about a deteriorating offensive line that some people want to call it, but I'll honestly say that I think the offensive line is better when Ben's there as well, because they're a little more in sync. 2019 was an aberration. I think he gets hit probably and sacked in the 20s, but not in the high 20s, lower than 25 times, and he could sustain that. unless it is the $1 million hit that no one's getting up from.
So we're starting to create this statistical picture here. So I'm going to just say that you agree absolutely with the Oracle, Dave Schofield. So we're going to go with 31 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Give me the yards and the completion percentage.
Completion percentage does not mean much to me as long as it's in the 60s. It's got to be in the 60s. So, you look at his completion percentages. I want him to be, I'd love for him to be 67, but typically Ben is more 63, 64. I mean, he's had as high as 68. But you know what? He does not really, as long as he's not in the 50s, that's all that matters. For him, that's going to work. Now, 61, that's on the lower end, but you got to think about it. He went to the Super Bowl with a 61.7 in 2010. He went to the Super Bowl with a 62.7 in 2005. And one of his worst statistical years was a 12-4 year and a 2008 in that 2008 Super Bowl. And he was 59.9. So that lends to my point that completion percentage doesn't matter for him. When he took a team to a Super Bowl, he had less of a completions percentage. So I'm kind of going to drop out on that and say, let's have mid 60s on that.
Okay. So
I don't think that matters.
I think you were leading to. So completion percentage anywhere between 60 to 65%.
Yeah. Anything else
you're
is
in
great.
there, that's good. So we got completion percentage between 60 and 65%. We got 31 touchdown passes, 12 interceptions. How many yards you think he's throwing for?
Let's go with anywhere between 2,900 and 3,500.
Interesting. 2,900 is pretty low in the modern game.
That's low in the modern game, but that also means that your running game's working.
Oh, okay. So, because, if you're throwing for 2,900 yards, I would say, in 2018, Ben threw for 5,129 yards. I'm going to guess the running game threw in probably another 1,200 because it was super low in 2018. So I'm going to guess in 2018 as an offense, they probably had about 6,200 yards. I know the Oracle was listening to the program. I know he has those numbers in his head. He's going to do his Rain Man and go 6,242. So I know he's going to do his Rain Man and bring out the yards, but I'm going to guess the Steelers had around 6,200 yards. If he only throws for 3,000, they got to get those yards somewhere else. So I think 3,000 is really low. I don't know. What about 4,200? How does that sound?
4,200 would be great. But I think if he has that many, that the running game might be suffering a little bit more. But this is a lot different than the years when he took teams to Super Bowls. But when he took teams to Super Bowls, Lance, well, let's take out 2005 because that was a really low year. And that was a different time. And he had Willie Parker there. But in 2008, he had 3,301. And 2010, he had 3,200 and took teams to Super Bowls. And so that's not too bad. I just kind of think that this is a year that the running game has got to get going to help him. And if the running game gets going, he can do less, but the wins won't suffer. And that's the bottom line to it. Everyone's saying like 38, Dave Schofield. I love 39 to 4,100. I love it. But can he do that? Is he going to play a full 15 game slate? And the reason I say 15 game slate is because the goal is that he's not playing week 17 against Cleveland. He's starting 15 games. That's what you're hoping out of him.
Right.
So
not to speak over you, but as Dave gives these, these levels, these highs and lows, these confidence intervals, these intervals of stats, as I'm looking at his career, 2013 starts to look like a year that I think would be successful for Ben Roethlisberger. In that year, He started 16 games, played 16 games. He had a completion percentage of 64.2. He threw for 4,261 yards. He threw for 28 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, and his yards per attempt was 7.3. His average yards per attempt was 7.2. His yards per completion was 11.4. His quarterback rating was 92. The numbers that stand out to me in that year, I think, which are most important, is that we didn't talk about is for a successful season for him statistically, how many games does he start? How many games does Ben Roethlisberger start this year, in your opinion?
13 out of 15 for a successful season. But can I go back real quick? I do want to answer that question, but going back, I don't think 2013 statistically was a good season for him. I think it was, but it wasn't a good season when the team goes 8-8 and misses the playoffs.
Yes.
So I don't want. I would take less numbers and more wins, and he could do it with more wins.
So let's take a look at the stats in the years with the best quarterback records. And if wins being the most important stat, give me the year that you would take. So the most quarterback record, in terms of quarterback record, the most wins, of course, are 2004. They went 13-0. He threw for 17 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. In that year, 2017, they were 12-3, 28 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. 2008, 12-4. He threw for 17 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. Wow. That was interesting. The interesting thing about that year is offensively, the year that they won the Super Bowl that year, they were absolutely terrible offensively, which was very interesting. Ironically, their offense was not very good that year. 2011, they go 11-4. 2016, they go 10-4. 2014, they go 11-5. So in the years that they had in 2007, they had 10 wins. So you have 2007, 14, 16, 11, 12, 17, and 4. Those are the years where the Steelers had double-digit wins in his starts.
Let's look at. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I don't know if he'll be as good as 2014. 2014 was his stellar year.
I think we would all be very happy with a Ben Roethlisberger-like performance of 2016 and 2017, because you've just mentioned 10-4 and 12-3 respectively those years. That's pretty darn good, and that's, of course, that's getting to the AFC Championship game in 16, and in 17 you only end up. You lose in the first round, but that was a year where you didn't have a whole heck of a lot of defense, especially towards the end of that year after Shazier went down as well. But if you look at touchdowns that year, 29 and 28 respectively, going from 16 to 17, interceptions 13 and 14 respectively. So they were almost identical years as far as touchdowns to interceptions, but in the yardage was between 38-19 and 42-51. So when Dave Schofield's saying between 38 and 4,100, those are the two seasons that if you can get a 16 and 17 like Ben Roethlisberger year, you're going to go very far this year because the defense is better.
Yes. I think those are good years. I think 2016 and 2017 are good years because where he is at, in my opinion, as a quarterback, I don't think you will see his attempts lower than about 475 attempts. He's going to throw the ball 475, 450 times more, at least this year. He's not throwing it in the 295, 268. Those days are over. He's had over 400 attempts every year in his career, except for 1 year after 2005. He is going to throw the football. That's what he's getting paid for. So I think those are probably the best comp years if you want to see what a successful Ben Roethlisberger return looks like statistically, because I think the most important thing that you said, Bad, is the stats have to support winning. I mean, it has to support winning. And I think with this defense, less is more. And I actually think the biggest stat that we've talked about in terms of successful return for Ben Roethlisberger is interceptions and games started. I mean, can he start healthy and can he not turn the football over? If he doesn't turn the football over, I think the Steelers are going to be in a ton of games with this defense. I mean, he has to play really efficient in the red zone. He has to stay healthy, and he can't turn the football over. If he turns the football over, it really goes against, all the benefits and all the things that this defense can provide in terms of a support system to winning. So I think we've done a good job, I hope, of identifying, what those years look like. I think 2016, 2017 is about right, because it's just in the modern game, you're going to throw the ball a lot. I mean, you're just absolutely going to throw the ball a lot, and you should throw the ball a lot because, I mean, I think passing games, that's how you win championships. That's how you play effective offense now in the National Football League, is by having efficient passing games. You win with the passing game. And so, I think that's what they're going to do, and that's what they're going to lean on. And I think those years are solid years in terms of looking at statistical comps that would suggest that he came back successfully. Is there anything else you want to add in terms of a stat that you think we've missed that would signify Ben Roethlisberger coming back and being Ben Roethlisberger?
I'm just going to bring up two comments on here, and I can back them up, and it backs up kind of what you're saying as well. First of all is the Oracle. How long has it been since Ben had a D like this along with him? Now, along with that, I'm going to bring up Ezra. And the reason I'm bringing up Ezra's comment of, I hope not, I need Ben to take a page out of Manning's book when he went to Denver, throw less. If you look at the 2015 Denver Broncos, that was the no-fly zone defense. That was a really great defense. And you had an aging future Hall of Fame quarterback that was able to have the benefit of a running game and throw the ball less. And he was still able to, he made it happen. And he won the Super Bowl that year. But he was able to do less, but be more efficient. And that backs everything up. If I ask you this, Lance, about you in your personal life or you in your work life, as years go by, you have a task to do. You probably move slower. Like me, if I have to mow the lawn or do something, if I have a chore at home, I move slower probably, but I'm better at it now because I could work smarter and more efficiently. Could you see that in your own life, whether it's work, being more efficient at work, because you know how to navigate it so much better and you know what works and what doesn't, or at home with the chore?
No, I have no self-awareness. I continue to do stuff like a dumb kid that's 22 years of age. And so because I do things like that, I hurt myself continuously and my body stays in a bad state. No, you're right. You're right. I think I've learned how to eliminate the superfluous and get to the essential tasks needed to complete the task more efficiently. But we're talking about Ben Roethlisberger. We're talking about hashtag, I didn't get my elbow fixed to hand the ball off. I mean, we're talking Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, so does Ben Roethlisberger show that level of maturity in his football game? I mean, he's been out for a while. I mean, I don't know if it's true or not. I know I've called Ben a stat chaser at times, like where it's Ben is playing for Ben. Is Ben mature enough to take that step back and be like his idol 7, John Elway, and be an efficient guy and be efficient like Peyton Manning with that type of defense and be a complement, not the reason for?
If he has that level of maturity to get there, and I hope he does, I would assume that he should at this point, and he looks at John Elway's career, and realizes that when he got down to it at the end, Elway still had to throw the ball a lot, but his numbers were down. He wasn't chasing stats. He was chasing Lombardis. If you can get Ben Roethlisberger to chase a Lombardi, and this is your point, and I love it, but if he chases a Lombardi and not stats, he's going to win.
I think he can do it. And, you guys are like, man, Lance is saying something positive about Ben Roethlisberger. What is the world coming to? I think he will change his game, but I don't think it will be like Elway did, them leaning on the running game. I think they're going to lean on passing the ball differently. I don't think it's going to be aggressive downfield shots, 7, 8, 9 routes where they're aggressively pumping the ball down the football field and he's taking chances with the football. I think he's going to allow that young wide receiver core and those tight ends to make plays with him. So I think the yards per attempt will be lower, but the yards per completion will be higher. And so I think,
I'll take it.
And so I think you're going to get more of a yak offense than an offense that has lack and where the yards could look similar, but there's not a lot of yards after the catch. It's where the ball is not traveling as far in the air per pass attempt. I think it's going to be more of a shorter passing game where they're going to matriculate the trains a little bit more slowly, but it's going to be more of yak. I think they're going to pass the ball in a way that supports the defense. So I think they're going to schematically move him in that direction while still allowing him to hashtag, I didn't get my elbow fixed to hand the ball off, where you can get the best of both worlds. You can have 35 plus attempts, but the attempts are a lot more, you'll be getting a lot of completions, high completion percentage, a lot of yards after the catch, where you don't have to put on the cape. You just kind of, you can kind of put on the slippers and step out on the field and be old man Ben and support this thing and apply the grease, but not be the engine.
Remember, hashtag Batman, hashtag not Superman.
Yes. And hashtag no Ryan Switzer. But before we get out of the program, I wanted to just jump into a Roger Goodell statement. I don't want to read the statement. I think many of us have read the statement and we are familiar with Roger Goodell's statement in terms of the whole issue and everything that's going on with George Floyd. What was your thought on Roger Goodell's statement, and how do you think that will manifest itself? Because I think there is an impending confrontation coming in the National Football League based on those statements and the ad that players put out, Patrick Mahomes and other players put out in terms of their support for George Floyd and their support for the end of police brutality and so on and so forth. I think there is an impending fight between the administration and the National Football League. How do you think this is all going to look, and what are your thoughts on the statement and everything in general about the statement and what it'll look like?
If you are going to make a statement like that, you better make it accountable and you better back it up. And you and I have talked about this, and this is an issue that is just not going to be changed easily. And there's no way it can be changed easily. But if he's truly going to understand his entire player base, everybody that makes him successful, then he's going to have to realize what affects them. And this affects them because a player walking down the street that is African-American is going to walk down the street differently as Caucasian. And the reason being is they are still being viewed differently, and the whole cloud of racism still exists. It happens. I was in a situation at a signing where I was helping out backstage for a player back in 2006 that showed up late, and his agent said, "Yeah, I'm sorry he was late. He was arrested for DWB." And he was a 23-year-old player and a very good player for the Steelers. And he was late. And I said, "What's DWB?" Because I didn't think that way, Lance. And he told me driving while black. And I thought about it then, and I realized, okay, he was in a nice car and he wasn't speeding, but he was pulled over. And his agent was a white man, but he was explaining that to me. And I was like, okay, I understand. So for you and me, we walk down the street differently. And we need, as a member of not the Caucasian race, but as a member of the human race, I want it to be where we could walk around no matter who we are without that cloud. And so if a player needs to express himself at this point, he needs to be backed up by the league who's saying they're going to back it up. And if it's done peacefully, that's the way it needs to be done. So we are not going to hash out a solution here. And as a part of BTSC, one of our things is to jump into that fantasy world and get relief from it, and a relief from the fact that the outside world and just talk about football. But the real world seeps into our fantasy world, and it's going to happen. And we've got to realize that the players that each and every week are dealing with life differently than some of us are. And so that's something that has to be figured out. And it could be done, but it's going to take a lot of changing and thinking. If Roger Goodell is going to change the way that he thinks and is going to support that more, it could only help. That's what I got on that.
It's going to be interesting. I think the statement was interesting to me because, like I said to you off air, he should just apologize to Colin Kaepernick. Essentially, he created an environment that made it impossible for Colin Kaepernick to be employed. Of course, Colin Kaepernick sued the league. They settled that, and that's probably why he did not say anything specifically or say Colin Kaepernick's name. But it's like the example I gave to you. Like, if you've cheated on your wife, you can't apologize about infidelity as a concept and not apologize to your wife. So, but the interesting thing will be, because the current administration likes to fight. That's the flavor and the style. So the administration is going to apply pressure to Roger Goodell and the National Football League when the season starts if players kneel. And so, I'm just, I'm skeptical of Roger Goodell. It's hard to pivot 180, 360, but I'll give Roger Goodell and the National Football League, I guess, the benefit of the doubt. We'll see what will happen in the fall. The National Football League has enough issues to deal with in managing the fall. Namely, are they going to have fans in the stands along with this issue? So it's going to be interesting because the administration is going to apply pressure. But I think right now where the country is leaning, at least in this moment, and particularly with Drew Brees' tweet towards the administration and towards the president and his response to the president's tweet in support of him, quarterbacks lead the way. Quarterbacks lead the way. If quarterbacks apply the pressure to the league will do it. So it's going to be interesting to see it. I foresee that this is going to be a topic that's going to be discussed throughout the season, but it'll be weird if you have players kneeling and no fans in the stands in that combination. So we're in a strange new world with the National Football League and where we're at as a country. So it's going to be interesting to see. Like I told you, Bad, I think the NFL folds. I think if the administration applies enough pressure, the NFL will fold, because the NFL has folded on on issues like this in the past, but we'll see. But before we get out of here, Bad, you got anything you want to let the listeners know about things coming up on the website and or shows next week?
Well, first, let me thank Snowman. Love the new show. Take care of yourself.
Thanks, Snowman.
Also, I believe Donald Nolan might have said a long time ago in the live chat that Bad is a classic homer, and I'm proud of that as well, too. Johnstown born. I'm a Yinzer by birth, so I'm proud of that, too. But I'll try to keep it real. But for this show, I'm really proud to be next to the hater, and I don't care whether you're a homer or a hater. We love the Steelers, and we all cheer in different ways, but we all have the same ultimate goal. So that's the best thing coming up. So many great things coming up. Q&A tomorrow with Tony Defio and myself. Then on Tuesday, the Stat Geeks will get back at it. On Wednesday, I believe, Lance, that you are going to be welcoming Dave Schofield on the show on Wednesday for the Standard on the flagship. Then Thursday, it's going to be Michael Beck, myself, and Dave Schofield once again. You're going to conclude the week with yeah, I said it. Then everybody wake up on Saturday with Sunday brunch with Tony. Look, we are doing the best we can to give you content, but good content. And guess what? More's coming. We have so many cool ideas that are going to be coming up. We're going to continue to drop back into that, drop out reality and into Steeler Nation and have so much fun with it. So, as I always say, Lance, we cannot do it with every single person, without every single person in the live chat that watching us or listening to us. People that don't watch us, but we got plenty that listen to us. They download the show. Go ahead, download the show. Listen to it in the car. Don't watch us on YouTube because Lance and I are so handsome you might wreck. So you don't want to watch it while you're driving. Download it on all those platforms. There's going to be so many opportunities to hear us talk. We're looking at bringing in former Steelers, current Steelers, if we can get that off the ground. And that's something that we're looking at to have special guest stars as we go. But we love having this platform, and we thank you all for it, Lance.
Well said, Bad. And with that, we're going to go ahead and conclude the program. And as always, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe.